Two alchemists are divided into grades, and each grade is divided into 7 stars. According to the strength of the medicine pill refined, the alchemist's grade could be clearly determined. A Tier 1 alchemist was called an alchemist, and a Tier 2 alchemist was called an alchemist. A Tier 3 alchemist would be called a spirit alchemist, and a Tier 4 alchemist would be called Apothecary Wong. An alien realm soul alchemist could at least concoct a Tier 4 medicine pill. Therefore, Xiao Yan could now be called a 4th grade alchemist Wong. As for what star grade a Tier 4 alchemist could refine, one would need to personally refine a medicine pill to estimate. Starting from the alien realm soul, every step forward was extremely difficult. For example, Ji Yun, although he was also an alien realm soul, he had reached the peak of the late alien realm, which was many times stronger than Xiao Yan's early alien realm soul. The alien realm soul could be roughly divided into early and middle alien realm soul. There were 3 stages in the late stage, and each stage could be divided into 7 small steps. With different stars, the medicine pill concocted by a high-star alchemist would naturally be stronger than a low-star alchemist. This was the iron law of the pill realm, hence, without a powerful trump card, it was impossible for a low-level alchemist to achieve good results in the pill competition. In a secret chamber in the Flame Spirit Gang of Black Region, Xiao Yan looked at the medicine pill that he had just successfully refined in his hand. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. His current soul, it should be stronger than a native alchemist of a great world with the same level of soul power. He should be able to concoct the same medicine pill. He would definitely be stronger, but with his current condition. According to Ji Yun, the medicine pill he could refine within 4 hours was at most at the early stage of the 4th stage. According to the alchemist's level, he would be at the level of a 4-star 2-star apothecary, Alchemist Wong. It's still because my own strength is too weak, and I can't provide enough origin monarch cheese to refine pills. If I was at the emperor level now, I reckon I would be able to refine at least a 5-star medicine pill. Putting away the medicine pills in his hands, Xiao Yan lightly sighed and slightly clenched his hands. 2 different colored flames suddenly emerged and soared vigorously. The 2 monarch flames that had been nourished by the Chi Source Soul had already completely recovered their former abilities. They became vigorous and lively once again. The space where the flames passed by rippled and revealed a powerful might. In order to become the champion, I must use the power of the monarch flame. Xiao Yan pursed his lips. There would definitely be many powerful people in the pill competition of Spirit Heaven Mansion. With their sharp eyesight, they would most likely recognize the flames that he was holding. At that time, it would be a disaster, but he had no choice but to participate in it. His contradictory mentality caused Xiao Yan to be deeply worried. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan looked at the 2 different colored flames dancing in his hand. With a thought, under the precise control of his soul power, the red Chaos Great Monarch Flame and the golden 3000 Lightning Monarch Flame slowly merged together, forming a golden red flame. This is the only way. I hope I can confuse those experts' eyes. Looking at the flame in his hand, Xiao Yan let out a low sigh. This flame contained the aura of the Chaos Great Monarch Flame and the 3000 Lightning Monarch Flames. Under the interference of each other, it should be able to confuse the senses of those who were interested in it. In these 3 days, Xiao Yan had also entrusted the matters of the Flame Spirit Gang to Bai Lufeng and Du Ruoxi. Bai Lufeng's management talent had been fully displayed after he had accepted the position of the Flame Spirit Gang's sect master. With his 6 paths monarch spirit strength, in just 2 days' time, it was enough for him to become the Flame Spirit Gang's leader. The operation of the Flame Spirit Gang had become formal again, and the gangs under his command had become peaceful again. Needless to say, the Black Sect had never caused any trouble in the Lincoln. Du Ruoxi received an invitation from the Alchemist Association the day Xiao Yan returned. When she returned, she couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Clearly, she had passed the Alchemist Guild's examination and became an official alchemist. With this identity, she had unknowingly put on the protection of the Alchemist Guild for the Flame Spirit Gang. The other gangs had more concerns before they acted. The Spirit Sky City's Feng family was the only big family in the Spirit Sky City. Naturally, the building was magnificent and magnificent. At this moment, in the backyard of the Feng family, Mo Li was standing in a pavilion with a respectful expression. He looked at the white-haired old man who was leaning against the railing not far away. The white-haired old man was wearing a tolerant long robe, leaning lazily against the railing. Looking at the graceful lotus leaves on the surface of the lake, he said slowly after a while, "You don't have to worry. The pill competition of the Spirit Heaven Mansion's new generation is about to be held. In my opinion, Spirit Sky City will not be able to escape its fate this time. At that time, Ji Yun, that old man, would have no choice but to abdicate. Once Ji Yun left, Ji Shao would have no more backing, and it would be much easier for him to bring Ji Shao down. After that, the position of City Lord would belong to the Feng family. It will be much easier." When Mo Li heard this, a hint of joy immediately appeared on his face, and he hesitated for a moment before saying, "I heard that Shu Che came to Black Region in the morning to bring Xiao Yan away. I'm afraid he will be invited to the pill competition." The old man smiled disdainfully when he heard that. "Xiao Yan? The little guy who still reeks of milk? I heard that Wei Jun is very interested in that guy. His soul power is not weak, but I think it is also Bai Qian. Fu Zan's level, or perhaps stronger than those two. With this level, how could he possibly have a good result in the pill competition?" Seeing that Mo Li was still hesitating, the old man frowned and said, "Don't worry. The Spirit Sky City has been ranked last for 11 consecutive years. If the alchemists under him can't make it into the top 20, Ji Yun will still have to step down from the stage." Top 20. Mo Li was relieved when he heard that. There were more than 80 teams participating in the competition. There were almost 400 of them. Although there were only 400 of them, all of them were geniuses in every city. It was indeed difficult to make it into the top 20 in Spirit Sky City. "Thank you for your guidance, Patriarch. I will take my leave now." Mo Li quietly left the secret tunnel after leaving the Feng family. The worries in his heart were swept away. The confusion that he had been suppressing in his heart for the past 2 days had been resolved. He felt refreshed and refreshed. Black Region, Spirit Sky City. He. From now on, this place will belong to my Feng family. 3 days passed by in a flash. On the morning of the 3rd day, Xiao Yan, Bai Lufeng, and Du Ruoxi stood in front of the gang, quietly waiting for the people from the Alchemist Guild to come. "Big brother Xiao Yan, I wonder when we will meet again after you leave." After a few days of management, Bai Lufeng seemed to be a competent leader. He had the demeanor of a high-ranking person. Looking at Xiao Yan, he couldn't help but feel sad. Du Ruoxi, who was standing beside him, also furrowed her brows. She looked at Xiao Yan, reluctant to part with him. "I don't know." Xiao Yan shook his head. The road ahead was long and difficult. He did not dare to make any bold promises. Cree. At this moment, a few loud cries pierced through the sky. It caused everyone to look at the sky. Very quickly, 2 huge spirit beasts landed on the wide ground in front of the Flame Spirit Gang. The leading spirit beast was Ji Yun and 2 guards who had reached the Emperor level. Behind the spirit beasts were Bai Qian and a handsome man. They must be Ji Yun's student, Fu Zan. "Let's go," Ji Yun said indifferently. "Let's go." His voice trembled slightly. This was the Spirit Sky City, and also his last chance. He hoped that he would return with a good mood after 2 months. Xiao Yan and Bai Lufeng cupped their hands together. Under the curious gazes of Bai Qian and Fu Zan, they sat on the back of the lion-feathered vulture. The lion-feathered vulture was a huge spirit beast, and its back could accommodate almost 10 people. The feathers on its back were thick and thick, making it extremely comfortable to sit on it. Its flying speed was also extremely fast, and it was a very ideal flying mount. Ji Yun patted the huge head of the lion-feathered vulture. The latter let out a loud cry, and with a flap of its wings, it soared into the sky. The lion-feathered vulture, which carried Xiao Yan and the other 2, also let out a loud cry, and followed closely behind, causing a wild wind to blow. Looking at the 2 lion-feathered vultures disappearing into the horizon, Bai Lufeng and the other man's minds were filled with countless thoughts. In the end, they both let out a long sigh. When this fellow returned, no one knew what he looked like. Within the Flame Spirit Gang, Lu Wu, who was training with the others, was looking at the lion-feathered vultures disappearing into the horizon. He mumbled to himself, "Big brother Xiao Yan, take care. 0 The sky is high and the clouds are wide." This was the first time Xiao Yan was so close to the sky in the great world. Under the high-speed flight of the lion-feathered vultures, the sea of trees below quickly retreated. Looking down below, it was an endless green life force. A strong wind blew against their faces. The few people sitting in the thick feathers of the lion-feathered vulture naturally didn't have to worry about it. All of them had reached the monarch spirit, so they could easily deal with this kind of wild wind. Mr. Xiao, before teacher came, he asked us to explain the rules of the pill competition to you. I wonder if you are interested. Fu Zan turned around and smiled. Yesterday, he had heard about Xiao Yan's evaluation from his teacher, Ji Yun. Fu Zan, who had always claimed to be a genius, was naturally unconvinced. When he first came into contact with Xiao Yan, he deliberately used his soul power to test Xiao Yan. After being noticed by the latter, he coldly smiled and taught him an unforgettable lesson. This also made Fu Zan a lot more obedient. Seeing Fu Zan's performance, Bai Qian, who had been silent the whole time, looked at the former in surprise. This fellow relied on his superb talent. In Spirit Sky City, other than the chairman and her teacher Shu Che, he didn't care about any other alchemist. But now, he actually showed goodwill to Xiao Yan. Bai Qian's strong self-esteem caused her to remain silent ever since Xiao Yan came here. Naturally, she didn't try to test Xiao Yan. However, there was a slight anger in her heart. She knew about the current situation of the Spirit Sky City's Alchemist Guild. This time, the pill competition was of utmost importance. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it would decide the fate of the Spirit Sky City. He didn't expect that Ji Yun would actually find the leader of a gang in the Black region. Even if his soul power was very strong, however, he didn't know his true skill in alchemy. How could he be at ease with such a person? Furthermore, Bai Qian had always been disgusted by the people of Black region. Therefore, she basically ignored Xiao Yan. The rules of pill competition? All right, tell me about it. Xiao Yan laid on the broad back of the vulture and said lazily while looking at the blue sky. First of all, the pill competition is held once every 5 years, and the limit for the participants is no more than 20 years old. The age can be tested, and Mr. Xiao should know all of these. Fu Zan moved closer to Xiao Yan and said with a smile on his face. Seeing Xiao Yan nod his head, Fu Zan organized his thoughts and said, "A few days ago, my teacher told me the specific process of the competition between Bai Qian and me. The competition is divided into 3 steps. The first step is to identify the herbs. Every contestant will get a certain number of pictures of the herbs. Basically, there are around 20 kinds of herbs and they will recognize them. After writing down the names and handing them over, they could only make 3 mistakes at most. They are in charge of elimination immediately. This round is the storage of knowledge for young apothecaries." Xiao Yan nodded his head when he heard this. This step was easy, but it was also extremely difficult. There were many medicinal herbs in the world. Who would dare to say that he knew all of them? This step could only be used by all alchemists. There were no shortcuts at all. The second step is to test one's control over the flame. The organizers of pill competition will show everyone a picture or a person. Or a beast. In short, anything is possible. The participants would try their best to simulate what was in the picture with their own flames. They would be able to enter the next round, and those who were able to enter the next round. There are only 30 people. The third step will be the ultimate skill of an alchemist, pill forging. The rule of this step is that the higher the grade of the medicinal pill one refines, the more precious the medicine pill of the same grade will be. After saying a long speech, Fu Zan suddenly smiled evilly and said, "Mr. Xiao, why don't we compete and see who uses the flame to simulate Bai Qian to look more like?" "How about it?" Xiao Yan was shocked when he heard her. Bai Qian's pretty face turned cold and she said coldly, "Fu Zan, don't make fun of me." Fu Zan snorted and said, "What do you mean by making fun of me? This is my training before the competition. If you don't want to accept it, go and tell the teacher. Let's see who has the right." Bai Qian gritted her teeth when she heard him. She looked at Fu Zan, whose face was full of a smile that deserved a beating, and snorted coldly. She turned her head and ignored the latter. Okay, it just so happened that he had nothing to do along the way. When he heard the rules of the pill competition that Fu Zan had mentioned, Xiao Yan felt an itch in his heart. Without saying anything, he agreed. He sat up and clenched his hand. A cluster of crimson gold flame appeared in his hand. Fu Zan couldn't help but be shocked when he felt the violent energy contained in the flame in Xiao Yan's hand. Bai Qian, who had turned around, was also attracted over. When she saw the golden flame dancing in Xiao Yan's hand, some surprise flashed across her beautiful eyes. Swoosh! Fu Zan waved his hand, and a yellow flame appeared out of thin air. As soon as the flame appeared, the temperature around Fu Zan suddenly rose. Fu Zan frowned slightly. When he sensed that the temperature around Xiao Yan didn't change much, he sighed in his heart. The strength of his control over the flame was still much weaker than Xiao Yan's. This beast fire is called the Salamander Fire. It was taken from the middle-rank heavenly beast Salamander's body. Teacher and City Lord attacked together and killed a seriously injured salamander. How is it? Not bad, right? Fu Zan held the flame in his hand and looked at Xiao Yan with a proud expression. Xiao Yan nodded and said with a smile, "Your luck is pretty good. You actually encountered a seriously injured heavenly beast." Fu Zan chuckled and said, "The lion-feathered vulture that we are riding. A few years ago, when Teacher and City Lord entered the deep mountains to gather medicinal herbs, we chanced upon a low-grade heavenly beast that had just given birth to 3 children, the lion-feathered vultures, and 2 low-grade heavenly beasts. Teacher and the others killed the 2 low-grade heavenly beasts. The lion-feathered vulture had also died due to its severe injuries. Its 3 cubs were brought back by Teacher. In the end, 2 of them survived, and it was these 2. The other city lords are all extremely envious. This is quite a good luck, right?" Looking at the gigantic lion-feathered vulture underneath him, Xiao Yan couldn't help but nod his head. The Spirit Sky City's luck was really good to be able to obtain the cub of the lion-feathered vulture. "Hey, turn around. If you don't turn around, how are you going to use flames to simulate it?" Seeing Bai Qian turn around again, Fu Zan complained unhappily. Seeing Bai Qian still not turning around, Fu Zan suddenly laughed evilly and said, "You don't support me and Mr. Xiao's training. If the second round of the competition doesn't go well, it will be your responsibility. Do you think you can take responsibility?" Bai Qian trembled with anger when she heard that. In the end, she turned around unwillingly. Her cold eyes swept across Xiao Yan and Fu Zan. She snorted coldly and closed her eyes. She did not speak anymore. Fu Zan gave Xiao Yan an expression of "I'm awesome." Then, he looked at Bai Qian's symbolic face with delight. He held the flame in his hand and started to imitate it seriously. Looking at Fu Zan, who had suddenly become serious, it was as if he had changed into a different person. His face was serious, and the wretched look on his face had disappeared. Xiao Yan secretly exclaimed in his heart. Although this fellow only had the strength of a monarch spirit, it was very likely that he would achieve some results in the Tao of alchemy in the future. Recovering his thoughts, Xiao Yan calmed his mind. His gaze landed on Bai Qian's face and began to observe earnestly. He had to say, Bai Qian's face was as smooth as jade, and her cold expression had a tempting beauty. Xiao Yan, who had observed her for a while, gritted his teeth and hurriedly closed his eyes to adjust his mind. It was a long time before he opened his eyes and lightly bit the tip of his tongue. Only then did his somewhat restless heart stop. Xiao Yan was not a saint either. For 6 or 7 years, he did not have sex with women. Because of his male instincts, he faced Bai Qian again. Such a cold beauty naturally had some emotional fluctuations. He observed Bai Qian's facial features again and felt a trace of desire rising in his heart again. Xiao Yan smiled helplessly. He gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. He looked at his nose, and heart. The flame in his hand began to slowly change. Two small black dots suddenly appeared in the clear blue sky. Very quickly, 2 small black dots streaked across the sky at high speed, causing a cyclone to explode in the air. 2 lion-feathered vultures flew across the sky at high speed. They were Xiao Yan and his group. "We've been flying for nearly 7 days, why haven't we arrived yet?" Fu Zan lay on the back of the lion-feathered vulture, bored. He sighed and looked at Xiao Yan, who had his eyes closed. Fu Zan shook his head and stopped talking. Bai Qian opened her eyes slowly when she heard him. She looked at Fu Zan, who was so bored that he was in a panic. She then looked at Xiao Yan and a trace of surprise appeared in her beautiful eyes. A few days ago, Fu Zan and Xiao Yan had used flames to simulate their appearance, even though she had some prejudice against Xiao Yan. In the end, she had to admit that Xiao Yan had used flames to simulate her appearance. She had won more than a level, and the fire was unusually nimble in the latter's hands. It was as if the flames were connected to his body, and he was able to simulate his own appearance in a very lifelike manner. Bai Qian was really shocked when she saw the image of herself that was carved out of the flame. The more she tried to figure out what was going on with the young man in black beside her, the more she could not figure it out. At this moment, in Xiaoyan's mind, there was an overwhelming amount of information about medicinal herbs. It was all the information Elder Yi had given her in the illusion realm. Before the competition, she could take advantage of this time to revise. I can't concoct pills here, so I can only wait. Fu Zan let out a loud sigh as if he had gone crazy. Then he looked at Bai Qian and said with a smile, I can't concoct pills here, so I can only wait. Didn't you read a lot of comments about the pill competition? Introduce to me what kind of forces there will be in the future. Bai Qian rolled her eyes. Fu Zan looked at her and saw that Xiaoyan was also looking at her from deep thoughts. Bai Qian helplessly sighed and her cold voice slowly sounded. Spirit Heaven Mansion has a total of 8 counties in 74 cities. Logically speaking, the Alchemist Guild in a city should only send 74 teams. However, there are more than 80 teams participating in every competition in the pill competition. The reason was that in some of the powerful mercenary corps in the Spirit Heaven Mansion. Usually, there will be some powerful alchemists, and these mercenary corps will organize their own teams to participate in the competition. The mercenary corps? Alchemists don't join the local alchemist guild, so why would they join the mercenary corps? Xiaoyan couldn't help but ask curiously. At least, in Fighting Qi Continent, he had never heard of an alchemist who would join the mercenary corps without joining the Alchemist Association. Because in the Star Domain, there is a mercenary alliance that isn't inferior to any superpower. The mercenary corps in every city in the Star Domain is under the jurisdiction of the Mercenary Alliance. The Mercenary Alliance is no longer just hunting and killing spirit beasts. Buying spirit cores was an even more unimaginable task, including being hired as an assassin, or accepting a reward to kill. Therefore, the Mercenary Alliance had an extraordinary power. Some of the genius alchemists might have different reasons for doing so. Furthermore, the rarer the item is, the more valuable it is. The reward given by the Mercenary Alliance is even higher. Bai Qian pondered for a moment. Her red lips parted slightly and slowly told him what she knew. Mercenary Alliance. Xiaoyan was deeply shocked when he heard this. This was something that was impossible in the Fighting Qi Continent. It actually happened. It even seemed to be able to match the strength of the Alchemist Association. Similarly, the Mercenary Alliance is fighting for some talented alchemists. They are trying their best to recruit alchemists from the Alchemist Association in every prefecture in the Starfield, which has caused an extremely bad influence. It had also caused all the Alchemist Guild in the Starfield to become irreconcilable enemies with the Mercenary Alliance. Such a phenomenon naturally existed in the Spirit Heaven Mansion. Therefore, every year in the pill competition, it's not only a competition between young alchemists under the age of 20, it's also a competition between the Alchemist Association and the Mercenary Alliance. Every year, all the mercenary corps in this prefecture will gather their forces and choose the most outstanding alchemists to participate in the competition. If those people from the mercenary corps defeat them in the field of alchemists, they will become the champion of the pill competition. This way, the reputation of the Alchemist Association will be tarnished. When Bai Qian said this, her cold voice sounded desolate. Fu Zan nodded in agreement. He turned to Xiaoyan and said, Mr. Xiao, do you know what happened in the pill competition last year? Before Xiaoyan could answer, Fu Zan said in a deep voice, I know. According to his teacher, the pill competition last year was extremely dangerous. An alchemist from the Mercenary Corps was extremely talented, and almost made him the champion. Although the champion belongs to the Alchemist Association of the Spirit Heaven Mansion, the second or third place belongs to those alchemists from the Mercenary Corps. Bai Qian took over the conversation and her voice trembled slightly. Xiaoyan also had mixed feelings in his heart when he heard this. He never thought that the Mercenary Corps would develop to such an extent in the Star Domain. The Mercenary Alliance. This colossus actually had the courage to challenge the Alchemist Association. I wonder what kind of talented alchemists the Mercenary Corps will have in this year's competition. Although it's not our turn to worry about them, after so many years, every time it was the alchemists of the Spirit Heaven Mansion who turned the tide and saved the dignity of all the alchemists in the Spirit Heaven Mansion, but I still feel unpleasant in my heart. Fu Zan sighed and muttered with dissatisfaction. There was no doubt about his ability, but compared to those monstrous geniuses of the Spiritual Sky City's Alchemist Association, he seemed to be at a completely different level. Although it was his dream to become a hero in the hearts of all the alchemists in the Spirit Heaven Mansion, he still needed to have the ability to do so. Oh right, Bai Qian suddenly paused and looked at Xiao Yan. Her expression suddenly turned serious as she said, Xiao Yan, I don't know how strong you are in alchemy, but teacher and the rest believe you. These few days, you have also taught Fu Zan a lesson and made him submit to you. With your ability, it shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the top 20. If you enter the top 3, you must be careful. There might be abnormalities in the arena. Abnormalities? Xiao Yan was slightly shocked when he heard Bai Qian stuttering. He subconsciously looked at Bai Qian. Bai Qian nodded. Her voice was clear. She said coldly, I'm not too sure either. But you have to pay more attention when the time comes. This was the first time Xiao Yan had heard Bai Qian speak so vaguely and did not understand anything. However, he still nodded his head and remembered Bai Qian's exhortation in his heart. This time, he was going for the championship. What Bai Qian said was abnormal and there was a high chance that he would encounter it. Fu Zan and the other two naturally did not know what Xiao Yan was thinking. The three of them became silent and looked at the white clouds that were rapidly retreating in the sky. Each of them had their own thoughts. After flying for 5 consecutive days, the huge outline of the spiritual sky city finally appeared at the end of their line of sight. Looking at the outline of the huge city in the distance, everyone seemed to be cheering. The lion-feathered vulture, who had been flying for many days, seemed to be unusually lively. It chirped as it flew towards the spiritual sky city. Xiao Yan sat on the broad back of the lion-feathered vulture and looked at the distant spiritual sky city. He couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart. This feeling, he vaguely felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. 2 Spiritual Sky City, the capital city of Spirit Heaven Mansion. Looking down from the sky, the outline of a huge city appeared in front of their eyes. It looked like a giant beast that had walked out from the ancient era. It was condensed with the chi of the ancient era. It was crawling on the vast land, displaying its magnificent waves. Ji Yun, who was sitting on the lead lion feather vulture, looked at the city in the distance with a complicated expression. After that, he patted the huge head of the lion feather vulture. The lion-feathered vulture let out a clear cry. With a flap of its wings, it swooped down. When the lion-feathered vulture, who was carrying Xiao Yan and the other two, saw this, it also followed closely behind. We're almost at Spiritual Sky City. I heard from my teacher that flying is not allowed within 1,000 miles of Spiritual Sky City. Look, there are people riding flying spirit beasts over there who are starting to descend. Fu Zan looked around and suddenly pointed at a few blurry beast shadows in the distance. Xiao Yan and Bai Qian looked in the direction Fu Zan was pointing at. There were indeed a few large bird spirit beasts carrying people and quickly diving down. The Spiritual Sky City is protected by a defensive formation. It's impossible to enter from the sky. If we don't want to go down, we can't let them. Bai Qian snorted when she saw this. A defensive formation? Was it made by a formation master? Xiao Yan found that he didn't know anything. He looked curiously at Bai Qian. The latter's knowledge was much richer than Fu Zan's. In the past few days, Bai Qian had told him many things about the Spiritual Sky City's pill competition. Bai Qian Zhen, that's right. Although the defensive formation is considered a kind of low-level one, it is still an amazing thing to include the entire Spiritual Sky City. Moreover, there are some mysterious things added into the defensive formation of Spiritual Sky City. I heard from my teacher that even Emperor Cultivation warriors can break it in a short period of time. After listening to Bai Qian's words, Xiao Yan couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. This was indeed the capital city of Spirit Heaven Mansion. It was really generous. It was able to protect the entire city with a defensive formation. Cree, along with a few cries, the 2 lion-feathered vultures landed on a mountain 1,000 miles away from the Spiritual Sky City. When Xiao Yan and the others came down, the lion-feathered vultures lazily shook their bodies and chirped several times happily. The continuous flight these days had exhausted them. Ji Yun smiled and patted the heads of the 2 lion-feathered vultures, whispering a few words to them. The 2 lion-feathered vultures affectionately nudged Ji Yun's body with their heads, then flew up happily, carrying a guard from Spirit Sky City and rushing into the forest in the distance. It has been so many days, it's good to let them relax. Ji Yun watched the 2 lion-feathered vultures leave and mumbled to himself. Then he looked at Xiao Yan and the other two who were eager to give it a try and said, "Let's go to the spiritual Sky City." Although they were close to 1,000 miles away, everyone could vaguely see the huge city that was crawling at the end of their line of sight. The shock that it brought to everyone was not something that a small city like the Spirit Sky City could compare with. Even Wu Ningcheng, who was also the capital of a prefecture, could not compare with it. Although the spiritual Sky City stipulated that flying spirit beasts were not allowed within 1,000 miles, there were quite a number of rented beast carriages at the border of 1,000 miles, for people to ride. Ji Yun rented a relatively large spirit beast carriage, and under the guidance of professional beast tamers, everyone rushed towards the spiritual Sky City. As they got closer to the spiritual Sky City, all kinds of beast carriages entered Xiao Yan's and the others' line of sight. All of them were speeding towards the spiritual Sky City. Of course, there were also some experts who were flapping the wings of the sovereign Qi on their backs. Under the envious gazes of everyone, there were more than countless beast carriages flying towards the spiritual Sky City. As the pill competition approaches, more and more experts will enter. In the past years, there were even quite a number of monarch cultivation experts in the pill competition. Ji Yun looked at the number of flying warriors outside and sighed with emotion. Elder Ji, Bai Qian said that the top 3 in the alchemy competition might encounter some abnormalities. I don't know what those anomalies are referring to, Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. When Ji Yun turned around, he suddenly said. Ji Yun was stunned when he heard this. After that, his expression changed slightly. After a long time, he said in a deep voice, "I'm not too sure about this. It seems like it only happened once many years ago. However, I was only an elder of the Spirit Sky City's Alchemist Guild at that time. Moreover, the Spiritual Sky City is deeply secretive about this matter. Naturally, they are unaware. However, you can rest assured. Ever since that incident, every year in the pill competition, the master of the Spirit Heaven Mansion would appear in person, so the so-called abnormality is just a false rumor, it's nothing to be surprised about." Xiao Yan and the others looked at each other when they heard this. What exactly was it that could cause the Spiritual Sky City to be deeply afraid of it, and cause the Spiritual Sky City to be afraid of it? It also meant that it could make a monarch cultivation. Even the heavenly sovereign expert was taboo. Could this matter really be made up of false rumors? Under the superb driving skills of the beast tamers, in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the distance of nearly 1,000 miles was left behind by everyone. The Spiritual Sky City, which was like an ancient desolate beast crawling on the vast land, finally appeared in front of everyone. Looking at the Spiritual Sky City from a close distance, what greeted them was endless desolation and ancient. On the city wall made of black stone from the ancient era, it was covered with moss and the mottled stone surface that was caused by the erosion of the wind and rain. As if conveying the vast history of the ancient era, the moving aura of the ancient era seemed to strike directly at one's soul. It spoke of the vicissitudes of a city that had stood for billions of years. Ji Yun, I never thought that your Spirit Sky City would be so thick-skinned as to come here. Why? Do you want to be the last one? While the few of them were immersed in the shock brought by the Spiritual Sky City, a slightly surprised and mocking hoarse voice came from behind them at an inappropriate time. The disdain and ridicule in the voice caused Xiao Yan and the other two to slightly change their expressions. When Ji Yun heard this voice, his originally smiling expression immediately darkened. They turned around and saw a skinny old man wearing a red robe and a goatee coming down from a beast carriage. He looked at Xiao Yan and the other 3 men with disdain. Next to the beast carriage stood 5 young men wearing red alchemist robes. The way they looked at Xiao Yan and the others was filled with disdain and contempt. Chairman Jia, you don't have to worry about that. In the past few years, White Rock City has been clamoring to enter the top 10. Didn't they not enter once? Don't tell me this time it will be the same as before. Ji Yun waved his sleeve and said with a cold expression. The skinny old man sneered with a gloomy expression when he heard this. That's better than those trash from the Spirit Sky City who are always at the end of the line. Don't tell me that the alchemists of the Spirit Sky City are good at talking. Ji Yun coldly harumphed. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a hearty laughter coming from the side. After that, a rough and forthright voice was heard. Ha ha ha! Ji Yun, Jia Shen, the 2 of you are fighting at the city gate again. Everyone turned around and saw a bearded middle-aged man striding over. Behind him were 3 young men. Their brows were filled with confidence. "Oh, it's Lord Yu Dong. You're the leader this time," Ji Yun said indifferently. He said plainly, the former was the deputy commander of the Mercenary Corps in a county. The alchemists under him were also very strong. Last year, one of them even made it into the top 10, which was much stronger than the Spirit Sky City. Because of the previous competitions, the two of them had some interaction with each other. Jia Shen snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He looked at Ji Yun and said with a playful smile, "I'm looking forward to seeing Spirit Sky City leaving with its tail between its legs. Chairman Ji, don't let me down, ha ha ha." While laughing without restraint, Jia Shen swaggered into the city with his 5 alchemists. That old thing really doesn't like it when he looks at it. I really want to give him a beating. Yu Dong walked up to Ji Yun and said coldly as he watched Jia Shen and the others disappear into the city. When Ji Yun heard Jia Shen's words, he became impatient. He glanced at Xiao Yan behind him and finally calmed down. He looked at the 3 young men behind Yu Dong. When he saw the third young man who was slightly older, his expression suddenly changed slightly and said, "This little guy. Did he participate in the pill competition 5 years ago?" Yu Dong turned his head and looked at him. He laughed and said, "That's right. His name is Fu Qing. He will be 20 in 5 months. He was just in time for the pill competition this time. Last time, he was ranked 21st. This time, I hope he can make it into the top 10. Ha ha, the young man named Fu Qing nodded slightly at Ji Yun, his face filled with confidence. He glanced at Xiao Yan and the other 2 men behind Ji Yun, and an unnoticeable smile appeared on his face. Obviously, he had heard about the battle achievements in Spirit Sky City, and didn't put Xiao Yan and the other 2 in his eyes. After hearing what Yu Dong said, Ji Yun's eyelids twitched slightly. He then spoke a few words to Yu Dong. He led Xiao Yan and the other 2 into the city in a hurry. The moment he turned around, Ji Yun rushed into the city with them. The strength of this year's pill competition contestants seemed to be much stronger than what he had estimated. When they entered the Spiritual Sky City, the bustling scene in the city caused them to exclaim in admiration. The streets were wide and connected, and the roads were lined with lush greenery. There were many pavilions and shops in the city, and there was an endless stream of people in the city. Spirit Sky City and GG compared to the Spirit Sky City, it was nothing. Ji Yun, who had been here a few times, was already used to it. He looked around and easily found a rented beast carriage. He said to the 3 of them, "Let's go to the pill competition's encampment first." After saying that, he walked straight to the rental spot of the beast carriage not far away. As the pill competition approached, the Spiritual Sky City had also opened up many rental beast carriage arenas, which made it convenient for the contestants or competitors to take a tour of the city. When Ji Yun showed the registration to the person in charge of the beast carriage, an old beast trainer respectfully invited the 4 of them to get on the carriage, and brought them to the station of the competitors for free. While controlling the spirit beast that was pulling the carriage, the beast trainer kept nagging, "I won't hide it from you all. When I was in the pill competition last year, I was driving a beast carriage for the alchemist of the 8th place, Nanfeng City. I wonder which city you are from?" His words were filled with pride and pride. Then, he turned his head and looked at Xiao Yan and the others with a look of anticipation. Ji Yun furrowed his brows. He still said faintly, "Spirit Sky City." "Spirit Sky City?" The beast tamers thought for a while, then said with a shocked face, "That's the one. Every year, the pill competition is always the last?" As soon as the words left his mouth, the beast tamer hurriedly shut his mouth. Seeing Ji Yun's ashen face, he knew that he had said something he shouldn't have, so he turned around and stopped talking. When Fu Zan saw this, he snorted coldly. "Look, we will definitely win the first place this time." The beast tamers didn't say anything when they heard this. They didn't dare to look back at Ji Yun's face. However, there was a trace of disdain on their faces. Then, they let out a bitter sigh in their hearts. Today was the first time they pulled a car, and they had pulled it up to the Spirit Sky City, which had always been at the bottom of the rankings. Their luck was really bad. Along the way, Xiao Yan and the others saw some beast carriages heading towards the pill competition's encampment. These were naturally the alchemists who were going to join the pill competition. On the wide road, there were several roaring spiritual sky cities, but there weren't any disturbances. It made them sigh with admiration at the management ability of the Spiritual Sky City. After about 15 minutes, the beast carriages finally stopped in front of a luxurious building cluster in the east of the Spiritual Sky City. There were many buildings here, and many luxurious buildings surrounded the spiritual sky city's alchemist association like stars surrounding the moon. Not far away, a few pill refining towers soared into the sky, bringing a huge shock to everyone. "Masters, this is the Alchemist Association." The beast tamers got off the beast carriage and said to Ji Yun in a low voice. Their tone did not have the slightest respect from before. "Thank you," Ji Yun said lightly. Then he led the curious Xiao Yan and the other two to a gorgeous building not far away. "We can't even gather 5 contestants. This Spirit Sky City is really worse than the previous one. It seems like this year's competition will still be at the end." Seeing Xiao Yan and the others walk away, the beast tamers muttered in a low voice. They looked at Bai Qian's back again and muttered as they drove away in the beast carriage. "I didn't expect a guy who drives a beast carriage to be so powerful," Fu Zan said angrily. Then he looked at Xiao Yan, who was at the side. Seeing the latter's indifferent face and then looking at the indifferent Bai Qian, he said discontentedly. "It's fine if Xiao Yan doesn't care. Why didn't you react at all?" Bai Qian glanced at Fu Zan and was about to speak when Ji Yun, who was standing in front of her, spoke indifferently. "Their mouths are on their bodies. We don't care what they say. As long as you are strong enough, are you afraid that they will say anything?" Fu Zan heard him and muttered, "I just don't like them." Just as he was muttering softly, Ji Yun stopped and looked at the luxurious building not far away. A guard wearing iron armor walked up with a cold expression and extended his hand to stop everyone from moving forward. His voice was emotionless as he said, "Please show your identification." Ji Yun flipped his palm and a golden jade crystal card appeared in his hand. He handed it to the guard in front of him. Taking the opportunity to verify his identity, Xiao Yan had already looked around the place. Around the luxurious building, there were around 30 armored guards. From their aura, it was obvious that they had all reached the Emperor level. There were even a few Monarch Emperor experts wearing black armor. On the building, there were a few eye-catching golden words written in flamboyant calligraphy, "Alchemist Headquarters." Within the building, from time to time, there were some alchemists entering and exiting the building. Without exception, all the alchemists who went out walked towards the back of the building. The guard took the jade crystal card and took out a crystal ball from his back. After the crystal ball was placed on the jade crystal card, a golden light suddenly flashed from within and a few words appeared within. Nodding his head, the guard flashed his body, indicating that everyone could enter. At the same time, he said in a cold voice, "There are a lot of medicine cauldrons for refining medicine cauldrons at the back of the station. You can try them at any time. The registration time will be 3 days later. Don't miss it." Ji Yun nodded and cupped his hands at him. Then, he led Xiao Yan and the other two into the station. "The room in Spirit Sky City is on the 3rd floor. This is your team uniform. For the next 3 days, you will rest here to relieve the fatigue of your journey. There are many medicine cauldrons in the square behind the station. You can practice when you have free time. There are also many other places that you can go to. He must remember not to have any conflicts with the alchemists of other cities. If the situation was serious, however, you will be disqualified from the competition." As Ji Yun spoke, he took out 3 long robes from his storage ring. He handed them to Xiao Yan and the other two. Along the way, everyone saw many young alchemists. With strong confidence in their eyes, they hurried to the square behind the station. They arrived at all the rooms in Spirit Sky City. There were 4 rooms, 1 for each person. Although it was not luxurious, it was still very neat and tidy. Xiao Yan randomly chose one room and laid down on the big bed. He comfortably took a breath and flew in the air for several days, which made him extremely tired. His soul force swept across the entire room and did not find anything unusual. He heard the sound of the door opening from Fu Zan's room, and then heard the sound of Fu Zan running downstairs. It was likely that he could not suppress the excitement in his heart and had already gone to the square behind the station. Xiao Yan smiled helplessly. Although he was very curious about the scene behind the station, his current physical strength and energy were clearly not suitable for him to immediately try. He curled his lips and completely relaxed. Without any hesitation, he fell asleep. When Ji Yun came out of the room, he noticed that Xiao Yan and Bai Qian were both resting. He could not help but smile. These two little fellows really knew how to work and rest together. Fu Zan, on the other hand, ran down recklessly. Although his talent was good, his temperament still needed to be honed. Thinking of this, Ji Yun couldn't help but sigh. When he was walking up the stairs, he could clearly feel that some of the young alchemist's soul power had reached the peak of late True Monarch stage, which was not much weaker than Bai Qian and Fu Zan. It seemed like this year's pill competition was really a place full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons.